Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scott Hagness, Conversations, Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity. Scotty, how's it going?
Going pretty good. I'm standing in the hallway today to avoid construction noises and things.
Oh, yeah? You got big doings there or what?
Just rebuilding the offices there for the second spot that we're subleasing. So
Yep.
mostly done except some of that upstairs stuff, and it's right above me and it's pretty noisy. So I'm standing here by the entry hallway and the side door to the nice rainy fall day.
Oh, boy. It's fall there, huh? I haven't heard the word fall in a very long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like it was hot, almost 90 yesterday, and now it's barely 60. Most of the leaves are still totally green on the trees, but it's starting to change. It'll probably go pretty quick. It stays relatively nice for a couple more weeks, and about mid-October or somewhere it starts to really change flavors big time.
I like that change flavors.
Yeah.
So I figure we get into it right away. The Wodapalooza qualifier is complete. Some decent testing throughout the last 3 weeks. Usually they do 2 workouts per week. I think the first week they did a ladder of, basically a 2-minute countdown clock. You had to do 8 burpee box jump overs, 8 hang power snatches, and 8 thrusters. You did that as long as you could. If you got to 24 minutes, you just were complete. So it was 24 repetitions every 2 minutes, and then you tried to do that for 12 sets. That was the first week, and I think they also had in the first week, if you remember back in 2011, they did the squat clean thrusters with 165, 5-minute AMRAP.
Yep.
They redid that, but they did it with a 7-minute AMRAP instead. And for the intermediate, which is what I was trying to qualify for, it was still 165. So it was very interesting to see where I was at relative to what I was back in 2011. I got 27 reps back in 2011. With 2 more minutes, I got 37 reps.
Did you happen to get a split at your 5-minute mark?
I think it was, I did 5 reps a minute. The first minute, I did 7. So 5 plus 5
figure it out there,
plus 5 plus 7, 27. So I did 27 reps, which is exactly what I did in 2011, but I was able to sustain that same pace for 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes, yeah. And
whereas,
if you had really been doing a 5, you would have pushed out a few more probably because knowing the clock was about to run out.
Exactly. That's a good point. So there was those 2 workouts because the hurricane kind of foobarred everything. They pushed that forward so you can do that a little later just because people are having issues. So the second week, the 2 workouts were a 20-minute cap. You had to do it with 2 rounds of 30-calorie row, 30 toes to bar, and then 30 overhead squats with 95 pounds. 2 rounds there. And then it went directly into, in the time remaining, a max hang snatch.
Yeah, nice.
That's a nice little...
Faster you go too slow, you don't have much time on that.
Yeah. And then the next workout with that one was a gymnastics emphasis workout. 4 rounds, 21 pull-ups, 15 handstand push-ups, and because we weren't the intermediate wasn't doing pistols, they did goblet squats, 18 of them with a 32-kilogram kettlebell, so 4 rounds there. And then
fun.
Oh baby! And then the final workout, because there was 3 scores that week with the snatch, the gymnastics triplet, and then also that 2 rounds. The last week they did a nasty little chipper. For the intermediate, it was 75 double unders, 60 wall balls, 45 deadlifts with 135, 30 burpee ring pull-ups, and then back up. So 45 more deadlifts, 60 more wall balls, and 75 more double unders. Now, these are all intermediate efforts. So the weight on the original workout was 95 pounds for the hang power snatches, and for the thrusters, the 165 for the clean and jerks. The overhead squats were 95 pounds. So none of these weights, for me in particular, were overly challenging, which where I am in my career and where the game is, especially in a competition like this, where basically elite is games caliber, RX is regional caliber, and then below that, let's say intermediate is top 200 within a region, and then there's scale below it. So realistically, there probably could be even one more division below that, whereas like scale would be like 1,000 to 200, and then there would be like a novice where it's just like anybody can kind of do it.
Yeah.
But as of last week, I was in 35th place and top 45 qualify, and I'm pretty sure I did well enough on this last workout where I'm, going to qualify.
Sounds kind of in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, nothing was overly heavy. So that was definitely a plus. But I wasn't anticipating anything being too heavy because it was an intermediate competition. What I was more concerned with is how am I going to feel going hard? Like some of these workouts are, that first one was, I ended up doing 10 plus rounds. So that was 22 minutes of very hard work. So I was doing about
what was the weight on that one?
95 pounds. So it was
that okay?
It was actually, because it was intermediate as well, you could step over the box. So you did 8 burpee box step overs with a 24-inch box. Then you had 8 hang power snatches with 95, 8 thrusters with 95. You had 2 minutes to complete that. So the goal in my mind was to try and hold the splits as long as you could. Obviously, just because of my training in my shoulder, I haven't been doing a ton of eccentric loading. So like touch and go power snatches aren't something I've been doing. I had been doing a lot of burpee box jump overs just because that's something I could do. And thrusters, I definitely wasn't doing a lot of those. So it was interesting to see what it would feel like just kind of being able to hold metabolic or hold that pace aerobically, but see how my body would respond with the weights in hand. So I did well. I didn't really necessarily have a goal in the workout, and obviously if you don't have a goal, it kind of makes it a bit airy-fairy at the end there. But I was able to push very hard in that last set and almost actually completed, even though I don't even think I was trying to. Like after I made it through the round of 10, I literally sat there for a minute just to breathe and recover and overheat. And then I said, okay, I'm going to lay this down and see how far into this next round I can go. And I think I was 5 reps short of finishing the round.
Oh. So
definitely had some high-end aerobic ability there, which was good.
Yeah.
That workout for the elite was done with 1:15, and they had people finishing the entire workout. Yeah. But realistically, if you finish the workout, the only round that matters is your last round. So you could just sprint as fast as you can through it because that's going to be the score relative to everybody else. Mm-hmm. So you could just hold like literally 130s the entire time and then go fast on the last one if you have that ability to like go that fast. Aerobically and also if you're super fit.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool test. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I like that one. Kind of
open style-ish, but a pretty fair test. I mean, if you're overly big and strong, it's not going to favor you all that much just because the weights aren't heavy. But you're also there's a big metabolic component, and then also the burpee box jump overs are going to be pretty brutal for people.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of an equalizer.
Yeah. That one I did fairly well there relative to the field. I think I finished in the top 40 or 30 on that one, which again I think was pretty good. The squat clean thruster, the 37 reps, was top 200. I wasn't really anticipating anything good there, but the pacing on it felt great. The technique was fairly good. I felt confident on it. I really wasn't thinking much of it and hit 37 reps and felt good. My back didn't blow up.
That
I wasn't breathing all that much.
In the past.
Oh, heck yeah. And technique stayed good the entire time.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been an issue back in the day, 2011.
Heck yeah, just blowing out my back because I couldn't squat. Now, here's the other thing. It's like, all right, so that is an area where I'm like, all right, I haven't really concerned myself with that much, but it's an area that I definitely need to shore up prior to competition. What are your thoughts on something like that? You see that in a qualifier, and you say, okay, we circle it. What are your thoughts, and how do you attack that to shore it up prior to competition?
Now, are you specifically referring to your lower back endurance, or
No,
like actually that workout?
That workout, yes.
So if you were to face something along those lines.
Yeah, basically we would consider that maybe a CP capacity workout.
Yeah, really, very much so. Yeah, I would turn the volume up here, and if you hear the pounding.
We can hear you.
I'm not anywhere near the pounding, but yeah, I think working in the CP battery sets in a very progressive manner. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, you know what the movement that you were preparing for was. Mm-hmm. We don't, so you'd have to mix it somewhat. But keeping a very set pace, whether it's one rep every, basically an RPM goal, not unlike how competitive kettlebell lifters train, by training a certain work capacity RPM, keep a rate, rest. Is something I've played with there. So, I mean, if you were to take, let's say you would just decide, well, I have a reference point, 165 pounds, ground to shoulder to overhead. I'll stick with that movement and that weight. Uh-huh. You already know what your RPM was for a 7-minute test. Mm-hmm. You could then try to increase that RPM slightly within work times. I would pick probably shorter than 7 minutes, but I would do more than one of them with rest, pretty extended rest, and build that way. That would be a real super progressive way to build it.
Yeah, so you're basically referring to breaking down that interval into its component and then practicing within that. So, for instance, if it was if we can look into the crystal ball and see what the workout would be like. Maybe this time it has a component, obviously it's mixed modal components, but say the end of it, you have to do 30 clean and jerks at, let's say it's 185 pounds or something like that, right? So you're looking at a workout that's probably going to be in the time frame of about 8 to 10 minutes instead. So you're basically doing 30 reps in 8 to 10 minutes. You would break that down into like a 3-minute interval or something like that? Or maybe even shorter than that?
I would definitely start with 3 and somewhere right around that range. I mean, these are ones you can't do a ton because you do have a lot of CNS demand in there eventually as well. So they do have to be a little judicious, but you want to kind of work. In an ideal world, you'd be working and training above the what you would likely see in an event. So, we can rough guesstimate, what we typically run into. I mean, like 30 seems to be a classic number for, some is higher, some is lower, but that's a pretty classic range. So.
Or maybe even doing it the reverse, or as you get closer to game time, maybe even do the reverse where you say, okay, now you're going to do 10 for time, rest a minute, do it again, and then do multiple sets of that.
Yeah. Yep. That's another.
So what are we actually training when we do that, Scott?
Well, and that is a $1 million question. No one actually knows exactly what we're training, but it is,
right.
To my knowledge, there's been no testing of that exact method or even, the whole idea of a CP battery.
Yeah, I think people do it. How would you test that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, people do it with repeat sprintability and field sport athletics, and there's some power, jumping and plyometric things, which maybe we could infer some information from. But essentially, you're training the ability to recharge that ATP, phosphocreatine more quickly using the aerobic system, hopefully without dipping over into anaerobic glycolysis too much. Which is our, exactly what we're trying to avoid, so we can stay aerobic and move faster through these types of workouts.
Yep, and then go ahead.
I would say then the confounding variable, of course, and when it actually comes to game day is, you don't always have that movement in isolation or as first part of the workout. You may have done 60 calories rows and 50 toes to bar and 40 wall balls, and now you have to pick up a heavy barbell 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And so you may come in already with, in a state of, just for simpler terms, redlining from anaerobic processes, and now you've got to try and get that under control and do CP battery work.
Yep. But I wouldn't say that would be something that you would train right off the bat, right? You would try to kind of isolate what you're trying to improve first, and then the closer you get to competition time, the more you're actually folding that in together, right?
Yeah, like a general, and a long view, and I don't know, what is that, 3 months you've got?
So it's going to be October, November, December, and then it's mid-January, I guess. So we're looking at, what is that, about 13, 14 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, in a long view approach, if you found someone that you really wanted to improve that and you had a long time to do it, and if they didn't have that great of an aerobic base, obviously that is going to help a bunch right there. So you would do aerobic base and then actual strength, classic strength training to get stronger in the movements. But then you could fold that into CP, a phase of this work building kind of in the mid-range, and then I would save a little bit of time toward the end of that for actual CP battery testers, where now you've got to go in with maybe you don't, it isn't a load you've trained with or maybe the movement is slightly different than one you've trained, or maybe you have confounding variables of other pieces mixed in there, and you have to learn how to pace and deal with it. So that's kind of the long structure. So for, I don't think you have time or probably the need necessarily to really build the aerobic base specific to that right now.
Yep.
So I would tend to start with things that sort of tread in that area, like cluster training on the, say, Olympic lift cluster training, that would then fold into more CP battery sets, which are essentially just long clusters if you do them kind of in an RPM format. And then eventually to some testers, coming close to game time and your tapering.
And those could be potentially 4-week blocks, getting 1 to 2 touches per week, depending on how their body responds and how the CNS is actually affecting other areas of training. That considering like hey, if you're doing a CP battery session, you come back the next day or in the afternoon and you can't sustain an output, you're just crushed. You have to kind of taper back maybe a little bit, or maybe rethink the intensity within those CP battery tests or sets, right?
Yeah, it definitely require monitoring it, because they can get you from either side. CNS would be a common one.
Yep.
They shouldn't really, anybody that has any business doing them, I don't think that they should overtax them aerobically or some of the metabolic systems necessarily.
Yep. Yeah, one of the things that comes to mind also in terms of the CP battery testing is learning how to actually stay aerobic under tension.
So breathing mechanics, exactly. That's where the higher maximal strength allows. If you don't have to completely lock down on a 165-pound clean and jerk, then if you're really strong, you won't have to, and you can actually breathe through it a little better. But also very important between reps. I mean, I don't know how many times I've watched athletes, clean and jerk, drop the bar, and they're resting for that moment before they bend down to pick it up again, and they're still breathing like shit, basically.
Yep. It was actually very interesting during that tester. I was about halfway through on those clean and jerks. I actually reminded myself to stay relaxed as I stood up out of the squats and went overhead. I was like, wait a second, keep breathing. Don't tense and try to create too much pressure, because you let your legs do the work. Let your core do the work and breathe. And obviously that lack of overstraining made things a little bit more sustainable. And I wonder what would have happened if I had kind of stayed in more of a sustainable pace throughout the entire workout. So I think that's probably a cool area that we would definitely be able to integrate into training. So like working the CP battery system, not really focusing too much on absolute strength, but in terms of where we're at, like in 12 weeks, what are you going to do to your max back squat? Are you going to put it up 10 pounds, 15 pounds, maybe?
Yeah, you'd have to do like a dedicated cycle, and that would be the best you're going to get, most likely at this stage,
100%. So it's
just not worth it.
Yeah, and you never know. You might actually get stronger just by getting touches on some of these things.
Oh, yeah. Seen it.
I've seen it so many times. It's like, all you've done is battery work. You haven't front squatted at all, and you just PR'd your clean and jerk. It's like, what the F is going on here? And I think it goes back to your point earlier. Like, nobody really knows what's going on with the CP battery, like what the physiology necessarily is behind it.
Yeah, I mean, people just haven't trained that way till CrossFit as a loser. By and large, you can't really find any other domain necessarily that's that close if you're doing that. So
no, the only thing that comes to mind is like maybe strongman, but those events are so short. It's like there's just not like a 1 minute like tire flip or a 30-second tire flip or
it's
a
still too short.
Carry. It's way too short. So you can assume that that's just basically anaerobic CP glycolytic essentially. But when you're doing a 1K row, 30 muscle ups, and then doing 30 clean and jerks or something like that, that's a whole different animal.
Whole different ball game. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing, and it's too, for the most part, too light to be exactly the same as paced kettlebell lifting.
Yep.
So long cycle clean and jerks and things like that. But
yeah,
still, it's not the same.
I like the inference though. I think the kettlebell clean and jerks, because I've seen it before and I've seen the athletes do it. They're fucking monsters.
Oh yeah.
Like I forget who it was, but it was a world class kettlebell champ, and they threw him on an erg, and he rode like a 120 500 meters or something like that.
Oh yeah. There's a couple of videos. I don't remember, it was one of the guys that Valerie Florenko trains, I think, and there's I think 500, a 2K. Look up the 2K one if you need. This guy does no rowing.
Literally just gets 2K. On.
And I think he just steps off like, all right. He doesn't fall off.
Yeah.
He's not in pain. He just gets off like it was just another,
But
it's
like,
incredible.
That's serious. Like, so there's so many, like, I would say there's three main components within the CP battery system that you have to train. One is mechanics, both the mechanics of the lift, the technique, and the breathing mechanics within it. Two, the aerobic system. And then three, the brain, like, learning how to actually move under fatigue. And I think the kettlebell training is something that could potentially be utilized, or same types of thinking, protocol wise, to get you better. Basically borrowing from other areas that they're doing. So like, we do 1-to-1 work to rest ratio aerobic training. I mean, where did that come from? Most likely any other aerobic sport. But if you're looking to get better at the CP battery system in a longer domain, which the kettlebell competition for the clean and jerks is
usually they're 10 minutes.
Yeah, so that's it. Like, imagine being able to do 10 minutes of clean and jerks with 165 at an RPM that stays the same. You're looking at a really fit individual.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I've long thought about that, and either like, I've not been a place where my interests necessarily follow along to try it, or if I found an athlete, I would like to, like practice, basically straight clean and jerk, double kettlebell.
Yep.
Can you imagine somebody that could move pretty continuously for 10 minutes with a pair of 32 kilos?
Wow.
What a monster that would be.
Yeah.
And the other thing that just for that repetition work and that type of battery work, that you see the incredible single rep feats that those guys do. I remember when I was at the American Kettlebell Club CERTA quite a few years ago, they had some of these Russian guys that were there, and world-class dudes, and one guy demonstrated, he picked up 2 kettlebell there. They were all of like 2 3-poods or something.
Oh my God.
Maybe it was a 2 and a 3. It was a ridiculous amount. In one hand, the 2 bells at the same time, and he snatched it. That is way more than he ever does in training. That was their point. It was like, he doesn't ever lift anything more than this, 32 kilo kettlebell in training. And
wow.
It was like, whoa. So I was basically mentioning that because going back around to your point of, why would I do heavy back squats in this cycle? If you do the CP battery work, it's certainly going to maintain your strength. There's no way it's not.
Yep.
And it might actually even improve your max strength. So if a back squat max or something popped up, you'd be right in there. Who knows? You might even surprise yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously this is a conversation that we can extend to next week, but just going off of one more tester. I think on the gymnastics triplet, I placed in the top, 10 on that one. I did it in like 6:39 or something like that. So it was regular pull-ups, handstand push-ups, and then goblet squats. Pull-ups are just something I haven't been doing. I literally haven't done a kipping pull-ups since the Open, which was back in March. So I had a shoulder injury in July, so I was out for 8 weeks, and I was just working positional exercises, thoracic extension and rotation, and obviously rehabbing, and I got up on the pull-up bar, and like I was flying through pull-ups like no problem.
Yeah.
But one thing, I think that the biggest thing that I've learned from The injury is the difference between hanging from your joint versus allowing the scapula to rotate upwardly and hanging from your scap. You know, which by having correct positions you can do, because if you're in an overextended position, your shoulder is the only thing that actually can move because your shoulder blade is pinned down and back. Once your rib cage gets in a good position, you can actually get some upward rotation of your shoulder blade and use your rhomboid, your lats, your low trap. If you're in a hyperinflated extended position, you're basically trying to get your range of motion through the joint itself, the joint capsule. So focusing on things like that have definitely helped. Going forward, obviously building the ability to do multiple repetitions with very little rest and, I guess, like you said, isolate it, build the capacity, test it. So I'll probably do something similar there where I'm like, okay, I don't need to be able to do 50 pull-ups in a row. I need to be able to do 10 pull-ups, rest 15 seconds, 10 pull-ups, rest 15 seconds.
Oh, just about up, yeah. Sorry.
So I think, doing little training, either clusters like that or even EMOM work, like started out as EMOM work or, not even EMOM work, but like doing lots of gymnastics repetitions and then doing short rests and training that. So like you said, almost clusters, like 10 pull-ups, rest 15 seconds, 10 pull-ups, rest 15 seconds, 10 pull-ups, rest 3 minutes, and do that for multiples.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that. With pull-ups, especially those can be done so quickly that you can keep them in that time domain where they almost stay in that kind of alactic range and repeat them in that manner.
Yeah. And again, it's going to be specific toward peaking for a competition, whereas like you say you were doing, again, weighted pull-ups or some shit like that. It's like, well, that's not going to get you better right now for what you need to get better at. Like the preseason is over. The build is over. It's time to actually get into the season.
It's here.
It's here. That's a good point. So we'll pick up off next time.
For sure.
We got to go.
Yeah,
but I'm Sean LaFlock. You can get me at Sean at CrossFitDelrayBeach.com.
I'm Scott. You can get me at Scott at CrossFitPortland.com.
Perfect, Scotty. Well, enjoy the build out.
Will do.
Yeah, there we go. All right, later, brother.
Okay, later.